Good day, ma'am. I am Bernie Flor Imgongob, and my topic is all about the introduction to business ethics. Public interest in business ethics is at an all-time high because public interest is concerns of the public as a whole. So, the public demand na dapat i-conduct or i-promote ang mga ethical manners to all companies to avoid misdeeds actions. So, one notable example is the Enron scandal in the US. Naay nahitabo nga fraud sa Enron kay wala nila gi-conduct ang mga ethical manners sa company, so shareholders lost billions of money and lead to bankruptcy. Dili lang sila ang mga naapektuhan, apil pud ang uban company like WorldCom, Tyco, and Arthur Andersen. So Enron's biggest mistake is not to conduct ethical manners. So, after ato nga mga panghitabo, US passed a law called Sarbanes-Oxley Act, which protect the public from the greed and unethical actions of the corporations, and help protect investors from fraudulent financial reporting by corporations. The scandal of the past couple decades have revealed that the issue of business has both macro and micro effects. So, sa macro is the whole company ang maapektuhan, while sa micro level, individual companies, managers, and employees still face the continuing onslaught of ethics challenges that occur daily. Not all business ethics issues turn into major scandals. In the following table presents a list of business ethics issues that companies typically have to face with select stakeholder groups. Common examples of ethical issues that business face in the stakeholder groups are the customers, employees, community and environment, and shareholders. So, the examples of ethical issues sa customers are product safety or healthfulness, advertising or marketing honesty, fair and accurate packaging, fair pricing in relation to product quality, and consumers' privacy. So, sa employees are fair compensation, compliance with employment laws, avoidance of employment discrimination, safe working place and conditions, avoiding employee theft or embezzlement, employees' privacy, and dealing with distracted employee. So, sa community and environment are environment protection and sustainability, adherence to environmental and community laws, good corporate citizenship, adapting to different cultures, and avoiding bribery. And last is shareholders. Examples of ethical issues are protecting shareholders' interests, fair compensation to executives, quality board of directors, protecting of the company's assets, fair returns on investments, accurate communication, and transparency. So, that's all, ma'am. Thank you.
Good day everyone, I am Blessy Ariha and my topic is some basic concept. There is a difference between ethics and morality. Ethics are standards of conduct which originate from some groups of source such as society. Morals are frequently seen as standards that originate within the individuals. In this view, ethics would be governed by society, professions, or organization. Business ethics is concerned with the rightness, wrongness, fairness, or justice of actions, decisions, policies, and practices that takes place within a business context. Business ethics is often seen as a set of principles or code of conduct Many stakeholders have much at stake in issues of business ethics. Ethics are external standards that are provided by institutions, groups, or culture to which belongs. Example, lawyer, policeman, and doctors. All of that is ethical code laid down by their profession regardless of their own feelings or preferences. It is also considered a social system. Example of moral: bad is cheating and skip workout. Good is helping your co-workers or helping a friend. The business ethics are concerned with the right and wrong policies, so they want that their company will be fair because you might be discriminated against, so they obey the law. Descriptive and normative ethics. Two key branches of moral philosophy or business ethics are descriptive ethics and normative ethics, which takes a different perspective that is important to understand. So, descriptive ethics is concerned with studying and morality of people, an organization, or a society. Its focus is on learning what is actually happening in terms of behavior, action, decision, or practices of the business manager or industry. It focuses on the prevalent ethical standards and practices in the business community, organization, or managers. So, example of descriptive ethics is all people are created equal and are seen as equal in the eyes of the law. Normative ethics seek to uncover, develop, and justify basic moral principles that are intended to guide behavior, action, and decision. Normative business ethics might be based on moral common sense, be fair, honest, truthful, or it might require critical thinking and the pursuit of different types of ethical analysis. Normative ethics it involves moral standards that regulate right and wrong. Example, we should do to others what we want to others do to us. Like as a boss, you need to be a good leader to your employees so that they will respect you and they will do their task correctly. Oftentimes, it is tempting to take the view that since everybody is doing this action, then it is correctly action take. However, we must be able to justify which action is correct or not.
Good day, my name is Edeline Binyan from BSBE HRM 3B. My topic is all about the conventional approach to business ethics. So the conventional approach to business ethics is to compare a decision, practices, or policy that is being used in practice with prevailing norms of acceptability in society. The conventional approach relies on the use of common sense and widely held sense of what is ethical. The challenge in this approach is to answer the questions: whose ethical norm should we use or follow in making ethical judgment? What is ethical norms are prevailing? This approach focuses on comparing two major variables. There are decision, behavior, or practices, and prevailing norms of acceptability. So the conventional approach is very essential or very important in the business because it is a business ethics that where you can compare your decisions whether it is good or not. Your practices and the policies that is being used in the practice and prevailing norms of acceptability in society. So we openly see norms, attitudes, or behavior that is present in the business, but we must have to see or we must have to understand whether these norms, these behaviors, or this attitude is ethical or acceptable by the society. So conventional approach relies or it follows to the use of common sense or our common sense of knowing the good or the bad. If it is not, then we should not do it. And if it is good, then we must have to follow it. We have the common sense of doing what is good or bad. So why should we do the bad one if we know that it is not a good? So in the conventional approach, it really matters on what is the good or the ethical values that you must have in the business. So there are many legitimate sources to consider, such as family, friends, religions, community, law, the person, professions, and so on. Likewise, personal values, norms, and judgments can be considered as a guideline. The conventional approach might cause to look at what the law says, or it may lead one to ask friends how they are handling an expense. In ethics, norms from one source are in conflict with norms from sources other than one, and how can we be sure that the specific norms are really appropriate or defensible? Today's culture sends as many as often conflicting messages about what is appropriate conduct, from movies, books, music, politics, to the internet and social media. Television is a medium where the contestants are shown creating alliance, agreements, and later on breaking them, violating of betraying the alliance in the interest of winning the game. Example for this are the international shows such as Survivor and or local shows such as PBB. One example of conflicting messages people get today from society is that sexual innuendo and the treatment of women as a sex object is normal, acceptable, and even desirable. The law and the courts are strictly prohibiting sexual gestures in the workplace. This example serves to illustrate how views of ethics are the acceptable to many in conventional society would not be accepted in more rigorous form of ethical behavior.
Good morning, ma'am. The topic is all about making ethical judgment. Ethical decision making is the process in which you aim to make your decision in line with a code of ethics. To do so, you must seek out resources such as professional guidelines and organizational policies, and roll out any unethical solutions to your problem. Example of making ethical judgment. For example, we might see it is ethically obligatory for parents to care for their children, not only because it is right for them to do, but also because it is wrong for them not to do it. The children would suffer and die if parents did not care for them. Making business decisions that have an ethical dimension to them is something faced by managers and employees every day. When a decision is made about what is ethical, right, just for fair, using the conventional approach, there is room for variability of several counts. Three elements compose such a decision. They are: first, observe or participate in the practice that has taken place in the workplace setting. Second, compare the practice with prevailing norms of acceptability, that is, societies or some other groups' standard of what is acceptable or unacceptable. Third, recognize the value judgments are being made by someone as to what really occurred, the actual behavior, and what the prevailing norms of acceptability actually are. Ethical analysis is the process of comparing one person's view of what is ethical with another's belief in the prevailing norms, and coming to different conclusions as to whether it is ethical or not. Whole members of societies generally agreed at a very high level of knowledge that certain practices are inappropriate, but this tends to collapse as we move from the general situation to specific details. We might all agree with the general belief that you should not steal someone's property. There are instances when we take office supplies to one home from personal use. People tend to use the company telephone for personal call and use company bought gasoline for private way. What is important to note is that while we agree in general principles and rules, we tend to violate them in practice. For example, a person might think shoplifting is bad, even the smallest item from a local store, but he might take pencils and papers home from work in a regular basis. Thus, when using the conventional approach to business ethics, determination of what is ethical and what is not required judgments to be made on at least three questions. Number 1. What is the true nature of the practice, behavior, or decision that occur? 2. What are society's prevailing norms of acceptability? 3. What value judgments are being made by someone about the practice or behavior, and what are that person perceptions of applicable norms? The human factor in the equation thus introduce the problem of perception, rationalization, and values, and makes the decision process be more complex than it first appears. The dangers of falling into unethical relativism is that we pick and choose the norms that are applicable and convenient for us. The conventional approach to business ethics can be valuable because we all need to be aware of the sensitive to the total environment in which we exist. It has limitations, however, and we need to know how society regards ethical issues. And that's all, ma'am. Thank you.
Ethics, economics, and law. In many business decisions, ethics, economics, and the law come into play, and it is important to consider these primary elements when making an ethical decision. In most decision-making situations, ethics, economics, and the law become the central variables that must be considered and balanced against each other in the quest to make sensible decisions. In ethical decision-making, however, we can set aside philanthropic expectation and focus on ethical expectation and those elements that primarily come into tension with ethics. There are two types primary elements. First, philanthropic expectation and ethical expectation. Philanthropic expectations means or philanthropy or a business giving may not to be a responsibility in a literal sense, but it is normally expected by businesses today. While the ethical expectation must be proportionate to the potential risk or harm that the research imposes. Risks should be balanced against benefits, and where possible risk should different where there is minimal risk of serious harm and moderate risk of minimal harm. So they focus on ethical expectation and they set aside the philanthropic expectations. Then the firm legal, economic, and ethical responsibility can be described using a Venn diagram model, which will illustrate how certain actions, decisions, practices, or policies can fulfill one, two, or three of these responsibility categories. The Venn model is shown below. As you can see, there are three Venn models. First is ethical responsibility. Ethical responsibility is the ability to recognize, interpret, and act upon multiple principles and values according to the standards within a given field and or context. Example of ethical responsibility: setting a higher minimum wage, guaranteeing all materials are ethically sourced, and ensuring that all employees receive competitive pay and comprehensive benefits as well as treated with respect. Then, second, the economic responsibility is the practice of a firm lacking all of its financials decision in its commitment to a do good in the areas listed above. Example is when a company modifies its manufacturing processes to include recycled products, which could benefit the company by potentially lowering the cost of materials and also benefit society by consuming power resources. And last, the legal responsibility. It is the right to have and to make decisions concerning the day-to-day care, welfare, and development of a child. example of legal responsibility is how you guide them, or how you good care or to take care of them as they grow up. As you can see in the Venn diagram there are 4 numbers inside the Venn diagram. First is 1. The action is profitable and ethical, but the law is not clear in addressing in the issue. It is ethical, there is a good chance it is also legal, but the guideline is to proceed cautiously. Profitable means yielding profit or financial gain. So, ang ethical responsibility o economic responsibility is profitable silang duha. Then, number 2 is the action is legal and ethical but not profitable. Therefore, the strategy here would be to avoid this action or find way to make it profitable. However, there may be a compelling case to take the action if it is legal and ethical and thus represent the right thing to do. It means the ethical and legal responsibility is not profitable, pero ilahang ipangitaan lang pamagi para ma-profitable silang duha. It because of their actions. And area number 3, the action under consideration profitable and legal, but it is ethical status may be uncertain. The guidance here is to proceed cautiously. Like parehas sila sa 1. Profitable silang duha, kaya legal man ug ang economics ang nagtapad. Ibali, okay silang duha. And last, number 4. The actions fulfill all 3 responsibilities. Here in the management decision, it is to go for it. Thus, the action is profitable, legal, and ethical. This is what the business should do. So, katunga responsibilities, tulo man to sila ka responsibilities, needed jud siya sa business. Pero, ang profitable jud sa business kay ang ethical ug ang legal responsibilities. Then the Venn model serve as a useful template for thinking about the more immediate expectation that society has on business in a situation in which the ethical dimensions plays an important role. It illustrates clearly that many business decisions boil down to trade-offs between the influences of economics, law, and ethics.
Good day, Mom. Good day, classmates. I am Julina Campos, and today I'm going to discuss the immoral management. The immoral management is defined as an approach that is devoid of ethical principles or precept, and at the same time implies a positive and active opposition to what is ethical. Immoral management decisions and behaviors are those that are opposite of ethical norms and principles. So, being immoral is when the individual is not concerned with the principles of right and wrong. So, for example, kanang mangawat or mangkidnap. So, it is considered immoral in the most societies and is also punishable by law. This model holds that the management's motives are selfish and that it cares only or primarily about its own or its organization's gains. It is implied that the management understands right from wrong and yet they choose to do wrong in order to gain profits. For example, they exploit consumers by taking advantage of their lack of knowledge
or deceiving them to offer defective, dangerous, or products designed to harm them, basically, financially, or any other way to gain profits. So, consumer exploitation refers to the way consumers are cheated and exploited. Furthermore, immoral management views law and legal standards as barriers to achieving success. That is why they always try to avoid or overcome the law in order to accomplish what they want. So the list below shows a major characteristic of immoral manager. So the following are the characteristics of an immoral manager. So first, they knowingly and intentionally do wrong. They are self-centered and self-absorbed. And they actively oppose what is right, fair, and just. They are no concern for the stakeholders. The operating strategy of immoral management is focused on exploiting opportunities for personal or corporate gain. An active opposition to what is moral will suggest that managers cut corners everywhere and everywhere it appears useful. The key operating questions guiding immoral management is, can we make money with this action, decision, behavior regardless of what it takes? Some notable examples of immoral management are the executives of Enron during Enron scandal. So in 2001, energy company Enron collapsed because of financial mismanagement. The company had been hiding billions in debt from its investors, which led to investigations by various government agencies. In the aftermath of the collapse, new legislation was created, accounting standards were changed, and executives at Enron were prosecuted. So next is Volkswagen's cheating on emissions testing of its cars. So on December 10, a group of the company's engineers decided to cheat on emissions test in 2005 because they couldn't find a technical solution within the company's time frame and budget. So to build diesel engines that would meet US emission standard. And last is Wells Fargo's creation of fake consumers account. So employees open millions of fake bank accounts in the people's name without their knowledge in an effort to meet unrealistic sales goals. Everyday questionable practices. A study in the US was conducted on identifying the common questionable behaviors observed in the workplace, which the employees think was unacceptable. So the list, which revealed the common examples of immoral behavior, includes stealing from petty cash fund, cheating on expense and liquidation reports, taking credit for another person's accomplishments, lying on time sheet about hours work, coming into work hungover, telling a demanding joke, for example, is racist, taking office supplies for personal use, showing preferential treatment toward certain employees, taking credit for another person's accomplishment, rewarding employees who display wrong behaviors, harassing a fellow employee. So all of these are examples of immoral management wherein executives' decision or action were self-centered, actively opposed to what is right, focused on achieving organization success at whatever the cost, and cutting corners where it was useful. So the decisions were made without regard to the possible consequences of such concerns as honesty or fairness to others.
So what do you mean by moral management? When we say moral management, it is management with ethics, a state of ethical excellence and the practice and implementation of moral maximization principle. On the other hand, moral management conforms to high standard of ethical behavior. In addition, moral management is different from immoral management, since immoral management means intentionally going against ethical principle of justice of fair and equitable treatment of other stakeholders, whereas moral management it places a value on equitable, fair, and concern of others involved. Being moral manager is a person who is dedicated to high standard of ethical behavior in his own actions and decisions on how to manage the company's activities. So what are the examples of being a moral manager? First, being straightforward and honest with other employees. Treating all employees equally. Being a responsible steward of a company assets. Resisting pressure to act unethically, recognizing and rewarding ethical behavior of others. Last is talking about the importance of ethics and compliance on a regular basis. The best example of moral management is from the book of Stephen Covey, which is entitled The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It characterized the qualities of an effective person. So first, they have the passion to do what is right. They are morally proactive. They consider all the stakeholders. They have strong ethical character. They are obsessed with fairness. They undertake principled decision making. They integrate ethics wisdom and management wisdom. Therefore, moral management is very essential in the organization because it ensures health and safety to all employees, promotes feeling of equality, and motivate workers toward the achievement of goals. It helps to maintain good environment at the workplace. Next, we have integrity strategy. What do you mean by integrity strategy? So integrity strategy is characterized by a conception of ethics as a drive force of an enterprise. Ethical values shape the search for opportunities, the design of organizational systems, and the decision-making process used by the individuals and groups. A person with integrity behaves ethically and does the right thing, even behind closed doors. For instance, informing a cashier that gave you too much change or going back to the store to pay for something you forgot to pay. For are the two examples of showing integrity in everyday circumstances. Why is it that integrity is important in business? Having an integrity in business means operating your organization consistently in accordance with a strong set of moral values and ethical guidelines. So integrity can also be defined as the state of being whole and undivided. Why integrity is important for success? When we have integrity, we gain the trust of our leaders, our colleagues, and our team. We're dependable. And when we hold ourselves accountable for our actions, we become role models for others to follow. All of this, in turn, directly impacts our success in life.
An example, Navistar sent its employees temporarily to various non-profits and still pays them, instead of laying them off. As a result, those employees are more positive and highly effective when they return to their job in the company. So, Navistar sent its employees temporarily into various non-profits and still pays them instead of laying them off. So, imbis na dapat tanggalon ni mga trabahante, gisend ni sila sa non-profits and still pays them. And Merck & Co invested millions of dollars to develop a drug for treating a disease that was affecting almost 18 million people. No government or aid organization was buying the drug, so Merck pledged to supply it for free forever. Volkswagen has been found guilty of manipulating the result of emissions tests so that their cars will come up to have complied with environmental standards. The company has built up an image as a socially responsible corporation over the years but now find itself at the center of controversy. So the Volkswagen is found guilty kay nandaya na sila para makasunod nandaya na sila sa test sa ilang sakyanan para makasunod sa basihan. If you hold management to an idealistic 100% historical moral purity test, no management or company will meet standard. We must instead consider moral of those management that now see the enlightened self-interest responding in accordance with the moral management model and are able to sustain this approach.
Intentionally amoral managers do not consider ethical considerations into their decisions, actions, and behaviors because they believe business is outside the sphere of moral judgment. They simply think that rules apply in business as they do in the other realms of life. The vanishing breed of intentionally amoral managers are still around, but they are vanishing breed. However, unintentionally amoral managers are managers who do not think about business activity in ethical terms, but for different reasons. These managers are simply casual about, careless about, or inattentive to the fact that their actions may have negative effects on others. While their decisions and actions are well-intentioned, they are considered as insensitive or self-absorbed to consider the effects of their decisions. As it turns out, these managers are more amoral than moral. Unconscious biases. Amoral managers may be unaware that they have hidden objective. Four sources of unintentional influences include implicit forms of prejudice, bias that favors one's own group, and conflict of interest. Though most think they are ethical, sometimes even the most well-meaning person unwittingly allows unconscious thoughts and biases to influence what appear to be objective decisions. Accounting bias is a tendency of people to reach self-serving conclusions when faced with ambiguity or other people's biases that they might otherwise not have considered. Bias may become even stronger when others' biases are being endorsed or approved by auditors, especially if those judgments align with one's own biases. In addition, three aspects of human nature may amplify unconscious biases: familiarity, discounting, and escalation with familiarity. It is noted that people may be more willing to harm strangers or anonymous investors than individuals they know or clients. Discounting refers to the act of overlooking or minimizing decisions that may not have immediate consequences. Finally, escalation occurs when an accountant or business person allows small judgment to accumulate and become large, and then she decides to cover up the unwitting mistake through concealment. As a result, smaller indiscretions and unreported or overreported amounts grow into unconscious corruption. An amoral manager sees the laws as the parameters within which business pursuits take place but is not concerned with the spirit of the law. If there is an ethical guide to amoral management, it would be the marketplace as constrained by law, not the spirit. The key management questions guiding decision making is: can we make money with this action, decision, or behavior? Note that the question does not imply an active or implicit intent to be either moral or immoral. Amoral management represents a model of decision making in which managers are stuck on neutral perception when it comes to ethical concerns. Another strategy that is related to amoral management is compliance strategy, which is focused on following of their law as its driving force. Compliance strategy is lawyer-driven and is oriented not toward integrity but more toward conformity with existing regulatory and criminal law. This approach envisions managers as rational maximizers of self-interest, responsive to the cost of benefits of their choice but indifferent to the moral legitimacy of those choices. The following are some characteristics of an amoral manager. Intentional amoral managers. The managers don't think ethics and business should mix. Business and ethics are seen as separate areas and are not applicable to each other, while unintentional amoral managers, they have no intention to be immoral but forget to consider the ethical considerations. They also just don't think ethically. They may lack ethical perception or awareness, which would have helped them since the ethical dimension. They may lack ethical perception or awareness, which would have helped them since the ethical dimension. They are well intentioned but morally careless or unconscious. They have neutral perception or view in terms of ethics. Amoral management leads to the exclusion and discrimination of those who do not meet the height and weight requirements. It is common practice for businesses to use sexy and young women to advertise their products such as colognes and other products. What they did not foresee is that there are times that women are degraded and stereotyped.
Making moral management actionable. The characteristics of immoral, moral, and amoral management discussed should provide useful benchmarks for managerial self-analysis. Self-analysis and introspection significantly help managers recognize the need to move from the immoral or ethic to the moral ethic. Most managers are not bad guys, as they sometimes are portrayed. But the idea that decision-making can be ethically neutral is bankrupt and not tenable in today's world. So it is important now. So it ensures long-term survival of the company. And it also gives emphasis on customers' needs and tries to fulfill them. Developing of moral judgment. As a manager, it is helpful to know something about how people develop moral or ethical judgment. The major research on this issue is Kohlberg's level of moral development. We might be able to better design reward system for encouraging ethical behavior if we knew more about how employees and others think and process issues and ethics. Kohler's levels of moral development. There are 3 levels through which individuals progress in learning to think or develop morally. And understanding this progression is of great value in developing a basic foundation in business ethics and leadership. The psychologist Lawrence Kohlberg conducted extensive research into the topic of moral development and concluded that there is a general sequence of 3 levels, each with 2 stages, through which people progress. 6 stages of moral development, which could be generally classified into 3 levels: pre-conventional level, conventional level, and post-conventional level. Each level has 2 stages. Level 1 is pre-conventional level. As an infant starts to grow, his or her main behavioral reactions are in response to punishment and rewards. Stage 1 is the reaction to punishment stage. Stage 2 is the seeking of rewards stage. The child begins to seek some connection between doing good and getting some reward. So pre-conventional level is concerned primarily with the consequences of one's action. So children in the pre-conventional level have not yet internalized the society's conventions about what is right or wrong. 2 stages in this level. So the first stage is
the reaction to punishment stage. In this stage, the child behaves accordingly to socially acceptable rules or norms because she is told to do so by some authority figure like her parents or teachers, elders in the community. So the second stage is seeking of rewards. It is concerned with one's own interest advantage. So moral decisions are made based on the rewards one can receive. So the second level is conventional level. So if in the pre-conventional level, the child is concerned primarily with the consequences of his own action. So diri pod sa conventional level is the child is concerned more with societal relationship with emphasis on social conformity. So in the conventional level, children continue to accept the roles of authority figures not because of self-interest. So the third stage and fourth stage of moral development belongs to this level. In stage 3 is called good boy, nice girl morality. It is concerned with peer and group acceptance. It is characterized by a behavior that seeks to do that which gains the approval of peers. So the stage 4 is the law and order morality stage. It is concerned with legalistic orientation and it is characterized by obedience to the law, responding to the obligations of duty and respect of those in authority. This stage emphasizes the upholding of the law, order, doing one's duty, and obeying social norms. So this stage is important because there is a higher value in obeying the law than simply seeking the approval of one's peer. So in stage 4, children blindly obey the law because of their importance to maintain a well-functioning society. So the last level is post-conventional level. The level at which moral principles become self-accepted not because they are held by society but because the individual now perceives and embraces them as right. So the stage 5 and stage 6 belongs to this level. So in this level, the individual sense of morality is defined in terms of abstract principles and values. In 5th stage, it is concerned with the common good. This stage is anchored on the understanding of social mutuality and genuine interest in the welfare of others. So the laws and rules are considered as social contracts. Laws can only be accepted or approved relative to the common good of the society. And the last stage is concerned with respect for universal principle. So for Kohlberg, the basis of one's action is not just the common good or a social contract, but a deeper universal principles. Moral decision is not just based on the laws and rules of the society, but on one's conscience. Level 3, an individual is able to defend or justify his or her actions based on some higher ethical basis. For example, in our society, that the law tells us we should not discriminate against minorities. A level 3 manager might offer a different reason. Part of the difference between level 2 and level 3 is traceable to the motivation for the course of action taken. Most of us will never reach level 3 as managers or employees, according to social psychologist Richard Kohlberg. Getting to level 3 would require us to think about people, products, and markets at a higher ethical level than the generally attained by society. Even if we do not achieve that level, level 3 challenges us to continually ask what should be.
Good day, ma'am. I'm Christian Amabat, and my part is Ethics of Care as Alternative to Kohlberg. Carol Gilligan argues that Richard Kohlberg's theory of moral development is not generalizable to women. She argues that men tend to deal with moral issues in terms that are impersonal, impartial, and abstract. Women, on the other hand, focus on relationship maintenance and hurt avoidance when they confront moral issues. For women, morality is often more a matter of caring toward those involved in their relationships than adhering to abstract principle like justice. So Carol Gilligan is an American feminist, ethicist, and psychologist best known for her work on ethical community and ethical relationships. So Carol Gilligan argues to Richard Kohlberg's theory of moral development. So women tend to be more on the side of emotions, more on relationships than focusing on the justice or abstract principles. At the first level says the object of concern is the self. At the second level, the chief desire is to establish connections, and at the third level, women take account of the needs and the needs of others. Some research does not support the view that moral development varies by gender in the fashion described by Gilligan. However, it does support Gilligan's claim that a different perspective toward moral issues is sometimes used. Apparently, both men and women employ an impartial or impersonal moral rules perspective, and sometimes they employ a care and responsibility perspective. So there is a different level in Carol Gilligan's claim. There is the first level is this: the object of concern is the self. So the woman tends to at the first level tends to focus on herself first, and the second is the chief desire is to establish connections. So women tend to focus on connections with other people or other individuals. And the third is account of the needs and the needs of others. So she tends to care the needs of others and herself. She tends to take that account to herself. So that's all, ma'am. Thank you.